Alrighty, we are so excited to have this podcast out for everyone to hear. If you guys have been following along, we are sharing our postpartum journey and kind of what we've been through in this past year. And it really has been quite a journey. I really do feel like I'm a postpartum survivor. And we've been sharing resources. We started with the story, and then we've been sharing resources that help me find myself again. And you guys heard about my time at the Bridge, which was super transformative, a 3-week trauma healing retreat in St. George, Utah. You heard about ketamine and how that really helped like lift the depression. And today's episode is with the founder of Microflow, Christy. Welcome. So excited to have you here. I'm going to do her bio in a second for you guys to hear, but I just want to like bring it full circle of how it came into my life. My dear friend, who is a therapist and just heals people on so many levels, knew that I was pretty closed off to trying like psilocybin or mushrooms as part of my healing journey. But she also knew I didn't want to be on like pharmaceuticals, like antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds. And she was like, San, let your guard down. I'm sending you something. I want you to try this. And so Microflow has actually played a super huge role. I've been taking it consistently since November in helping me like take the edge off. And I'll share more about my experience. But before I do, you guys, I'm so happy the founder of Microflow, Christy, is here. I'm going to read her bio so you guys can know who we have the pleasure of sitting here with today. So Christy Nault is a root cause health practitioner and the founder, formulator, and CEO of Microflow, a pioneering microdosing supplement brand. With nearly 2 decades in the healing space, she's become a leading voice in multidimensional health, known for bridging cellular intelligence with cosmic consciousness through a deeply embodied lens. Her work integrates psychology. Am I saying that right? So physiology. Sorry, nervous system science, subconscious rewiring, structural and metabolic foundations, and the unseen energetic architecture shaping human health. Christy approaches healing through the principle of order of operations, guiding women beyond system management and into true coherence at the level of identity. Having had supported over 22,000 women in reclaiming their vitality, Christy empowers her community to remember that health is not the end goal, but simply the gateway into living their most fully expressed, prosperous, soul-aligned life. She is here to lead the light workers, visionaries, and renegades in upgrading the technology of their cells so they can safely hold the full voltage of their light and the magnitude of their mission. Christy is also the host of the Cellular Upgrade podcast, which you guys, I love listening to it. Highly recommend subscribing, where she explores the intersection of root cause healing, sacred medicines, nervous system mastery, and the conscious evolution through bold paradigm shifting conversations. Wow. Welcome, Christy.
Thank you. Thanks for that beautiful intro. It is so nice to be with you both. I'm so excited to just highlight your journey and share with the audience about this beautiful sacred medicine, get all of the misconceptions and the myths cleared up, and really just go 101, because you mentioned that you had some fear about working with the medicine. Yes. And I think people look at me and where I'm at today. I have been working in the healing space for 17 years. I launched Microflow in 2022, so they probably think I'm like this big psychedelic head girl, and I really wasn't. I had a lot of fear as well. I thoroughly researched plant medicine, specifically psilocybin, for over 7 years before I personally felt safe even beginning with a microdose. So I can absolutely relate to anyone who holds fears, and I'm just so excited to bring it back to the true nervous system science of it all and what's actually happening and how it helps us.
Yes, so good. I would love for you to share, because before I took it, like my friend sent it to me, before I took it, I researched the company and I started finding you on several podcasts and like listening to your story. And I felt like your story was so powerful of like what brought you to start this. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about like your upbringing and just kind of what brought you to this. And then I'd love to segue into like my experience in taking Microflow and how it's helped me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, most practitioners get into the space because they had some form of health crisis, and that was the case for me, but I was not sick as a child. A lot of people get into the healing space because perhaps they were on a bunch of antibiotics as a kid and had ear infections that then destroyed their gut, and then they went on hormonal birth control and their health crashed in their teens. I was actually quite resilient physically as a kid. The story really started with my brother. So, I'm one of three children. I'm the middle child. My brother was the firstborn. My parents describe him as truly the perfect first child. He was wildly intelligent and athletic, charismatic, charming. He was born super, super healthy and just lived a really normal childhood in his youngest years. And then right before kindergarten, he went in for just a routine well check, and he was severely vaccine injured. He went into the doctor's office as one version of this little boy and left seizing. And a lot of people hear seizures and they're like, yeah, my dog used to have seizures, or like, this is just, he was very soon diagnosed with the worst case of epilepsy that doctors had ever witnessed worldwide. At this point in the 90s, he was having over 350 grand mal seizures every single day. He went through over 13 brain surgeries as a young boy. They just kept removing more parts of his brain to try to remove where the epilepsy was stemming from. Obviously, he was vaccine injured. That wasn't going to work. So my nervous system started shaping around this family environment at a really young age. My parents were young parents. They were so dedicated to him, and they loved my sister and me so much, but I just wanted to be the perfect little girl. I didn't want to put any more on their plate, because we were dealing with so much at home. My brother was even medically kidnapped from our family at one point. Like, there were so many things that went down. We were gaslit, we were abused within the medical system. So I saw at a very young age the downfalls of Western medicine. And so, Microflow and microdosing is all about nervous system healing and subconscious healing and healing your trauma. And, I didn't realize that later in my 30s, I would be like telling this story about my brother so often when we were growing up, but I didn't realize that my nervous system being shaped from, I was 3 years old when this happened. So this is all I knew, right? So, by the time I was in middle school, I had a very severe eating disorder. I was trying to control a very unsafe environment with the epilepsy and the seizures that my brother was going through. There were a lot of violent behavioral outbursts happening at home, and I quite literally just grew up feeling super unsafe. That's like the moral of the story. And I think a lot of us have similar stories in very different ways. It's probably not with a sibling who got vaccine injured, but maybe there was, a parent who was an alcoholic, or like a lot of us just, our bodies, our consciousness is shaped before the age of 7 years old. Our subconscious is fully formed by the age of 7, and that controls 97% of our reality for the rest of our life, our relationships, our job, our ability to make money, our ability to feel safe in our body. It shapes our identity, that shapes our physiology behind the scenes. And unless you consciously rewire your subconscious as an adult, you're just replaying these stories from childhood over and over and over again, and just calling it bad luck and, really living in victim consciousness. So basically, I'm going to fast forward a lot of the story, but my brother passed away in 2015. And at that time, I was already working in the healing space. I was having issues with my hormones, with my gut. I was, quote unquote, doing all the right things: perfect diet, perfect exercise, on all the supplements, the detoxes. I was meditating. I was focusing on, spiritual health. But like within days of his death, my body blew up. And I had a diagnosis of endometriosis, chronic Lyme disease, autoimmunity. The list goes on and on and on and on. And I was told by so many doctors that these conditions did not have a cure. And it was so clear to me what happened in my own physical body when I went through such a massive trauma with my brother. And it was just my wake-up call. I had a massive spiritual awakening within a couple days of his death. He came through to me in spirit form, so clear, within 48 hours of his passing. And he basically told me that he's passing me the torch. We wrote a soul contract together, and he essentially gave up his life to wake me up so I could wake up the masses. And that's really when the journey of
So
multidimensional healing started for me. And I had already actually been researching the psychedelics at that point, but it just became so clear to me that I couldn't diet any harder. I couldn't detox any harder. I was literally freaking doing all the right things. So I really had to go into the depths of my own shadow and into my own trauma and my own subconscious. And that's really where consciously microdosing rewired my entire psychology. It rewired my nervous system, and it did it within 3 months. It was absolutely wild, the transformation I had personally from microdosing. I mean, within that time, I also completely 100% healed and reversed every diagnosis I had ever been given. But it was so far beyond that. I felt safe for the very first time in my life. I was able to be present for the very first time in my life. I healed a lifelong eating disorder in 3 months. And I just basically could not share this medicine. And we can talk about, the origin story of Microflow, but that's just a little bit about, I've been immersed in this world from the time I was really young. And I feel like my mission was kind of drawn out for me from the time I was a child.
Oh my
wow.
goodness.
That story is so like there's so many parts of that I like want to dissect, but thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Like
the soul contract with your brother, like wow, that gosh, that really got me chills there. I think, yeah, we'd love to hear the origin story of Microflow. Even before that, for the listeners who are like, okay, psilocybin mushrooms, like maybe explain even what microdosing is, like even like the concept of psilocybin, what microdosing is, and even like the layers and levels of it. Because like I've done the hero dose, which is a very different experience than a sub-perceptual microdose and there's in between. And so like kind of give people like the 101 on psilocybin. And then if you could just flow that into like Microflow origin story.
Yes, absolutely. So, whenever you hear the word microdose, it just means taking a teeny tiny fraction of a dose of something. Right now, we're hearing a lot about microdosing GLPs. People talk about microdosing literally anything. When I'm talking about microdosing, I'm talking about psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms. If you think about a hero's dose or a journey dose that's going to take you on a journey and make you trip, like Wade was just referring to, that is going to be at minimum 3 grams of psilocybin. Most people typically do about 5 grams or more of psilocybin. When I'm talking about microdosing with one capsule of Microflow, it's about 1/30th to 1/50th of a journey dose in a capsule. It is a sub-perceptual dose. It does not make you high or altered. I formulated Microflow because the majority of my community are working mothers. So you can work, you can drive, you can parent, you can drive your children safely, you can go about all of your daily activities, and with even more presence and even more clarity. It is so safe. So just to be clear, I refer to microdoses as sober doses. And there's actually anyone could go research this on their own, but there is a ton of research about microdosing even supporting addiction, and it's really healthy for those people who have struggled with substances. So, some of the pushback I've heard in the past are from people like, I'm sober, I don't drink alcohol, I don't do drugs. And same here, I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke weed, I do not do drugs at all. I'm really all about keeping a very pure vessel. And this is very different. It is a sacred mushroom that grows from the fertile soils of our beautiful Mother Earth. And when used with the background and the education that I'm going to provide today, and with deep intention, it is very, very, very safe. So typically when we are microdosing, you're following a specific protocol. Often I recommend doing 4 days on and about 3 days off, but it's not an every single day thing. You do it with intention. I always say we give the medicine a mission, but essentially what is happening at a nervous system science level when we are microdosing are so many different things, but to just break it down in like the 101 terms, microdosing is igniting neuroplasticity, which basically just means that our brain can change, because our brain and our nervous system are wired for one thing and one thing only, which is safety. But safety to our brain and nervous system just means what's familiar. Like our nervous system, our body is wired to defend familiarity, which means most people stay stuck in their same patterns over and over and over again. If you grew up with scarcity, pain, trauma, chaos, illness, our body is wired to recreate that. So the psilocybin goes in and it softens the default mode network, which is just a really sciencey, fancy way of saying our brain on autopilot. Or if we think of neural pathways, those really well-worn pathways. So say Sandy and Wade, you guys have a certain dynamic in your relationship. I am married. I've been married for 13 years. Like everyone goes through things, and you guys, we all have our triggers and we all have our reactions and our roles that we play. And so say that you two got in maybe a bicker. I'm totally making this up. I don't know anything about your marriage, but one of you reacts like the same way you always have, and it turns into the same fight. And, you know, couples have the same fight over and over again for 10 plus years, maybe forever. And what the microdosing does when it's softening that default mode network is it creates spaciousness. It creates less reactivity. So in the moment, you can witness that pattern that would typically take place instead of being that pattern, instead of, you know, recreating that pattern again. And it gives you the option of choice. So in addition to softening the default mode network and softening that noise and softening the patterns that we are always recreating, it's also stimulating neurogenesis, which really just means the formation of new, healthy, resilient neural pathways mapped all throughout our brain and body, which just means it's healing our brain and body. It is reconnecting all of the parts that became disconnected through pain and trauma. When you go through trauma, and we can talk about this through your postpartum journey, because you went through a lot of trauma through that journey. What happens in a state of trauma, or like what happened to me as a child, is essentially the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the brain disconnect, and there's a lack of communication between the two hemispheres of the brain. The brain and the body disconnect. You do not feel like you're in coherence. You usually feel so dissociated out of your body. You do not feel in touch with your intuition. We feel disconnected from our higher self. So all of these severs of communication, all of the networks of communication, I should say, become severed through trauma, and the neurogenesis, the new pathways created by the mushrooms, reconnect everything in your brain and brain to body. It is just an absolute gift of a medicine. And that's where so much rewiring can happen. We can override those old choices, the old habits, the old subconscious identity, because at the end of the day, it really is our identity at a subconscious level, so you're not aware of it, that is creating our reality.
Can I ask you a question there that I'm
So
just
good.
so curious about the answer to? Because this is where I'm like, I've taken it and I understand how it works, but also I'm like, what's the mushroom's role and what's my role? Before I even ask that question, Christy was saying the subperceptual, to put it in like perspective of like someone like Sandy and I who don't know all this stuff about mushrooms. And Christy did a great job of explaining like the 101. But like we have like an energy drink in front of us, which is green tea, caffeine, B vitamins, ginseng, plant-based botanicals, all natural. Like you can feel that happening in your body. Taking a microdose, like the 1/30th, 1/50th, a microflow, let's say, the subperceptual, meaning like you wouldn't know you took it in that moment or in that day. It would not affect. If it just happened, you didn't even know you swallowed it, you wouldn't necessarily know. But what I've noticed and what happens in the research that I've read is over the course of like a few weeks, it starts to integrate. You start to notice like, wait, I've been less short with my kids or my spouse. So like, wait, I've been like more centered and grounded. Like it's this grounding thing. So that subperceptual is like she was saying, you could drive, you could do anything. You don't even feel it at those levels, but it is working in you. And that comes to my question is, so I could probably dive more into my feminine and receive and let life happen for me all around me. But I'm like big into my masculine, like I'm going to make it happen. So my question is, what role is the psilocybin or the mushroom in this neuroplasticity, in this shaping new neural pathways? And like how much is happening just in the background without me even knowing? But then do I have any role in like, wait, I'm microdosing, we're getting into, let's use that example, the same argument. Do I have a role in like, I need to actually act differently to rewire the neural pathway, or is it doing like in the background on its own, or is it a mix of both? Like, I'm so curious about that.
Yes, we definitely play an active role in the microdosing process. It's not a cure all, fix all like a pharmaceutical. We are
It's
in
not a
real,
magic pill.
yeah,
It is, but it takes some
it
of our work.
is, but it requires sovereignty. We're not here to just lay back and be victims. We're here to step into our creator consciousness, which means we have to understand that we're working not with a medicine, synthetic chemical cooked up in a lab, right? Like that would be a pharmaceutical, and there's a time and place for that, and I'm not here to bash that. We are working with a consciousness. So mushrooms are the oldest biological beings living on planet Earth. So many other beings have gone through extinctions, and mushrooms have survived. They hold the codes of the origin of Earth. They hold the codes of God, source consciousness, creation, Mother Gaia. They hold the codes of resilience because they have been survivors when, there have been so many things where others have gone extinct. With that said, we have to understand them as living beings, like they're a consciousness. So when we work with the mushroom, like I was saying before, I always like to tell my community to give the medicine a mission. And that's going to really help you, and it can be different every single day. And for me, I healed so many different health issues, but the biggest quantum leap in my journey was financial freedom. I went from 6 figures in credit card debt when I started microdosing to building a 7-figure business in 1 year. And and it's only taken off from there. And that was because of, what I felt worthy of before and my identity rooted in scarcity. And I felt as much as we think we have these dreams, goals, and aspirations of wanting these great things in life, we are subconsciously addicted to our own shit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're talking about is, do we have to be an active participant? Yes, because the medicine is going to show us the door, we can say. We have to be the one to step through that. So when you see that pattern come up, or when you see the role you are playing in your own suffering, that doesn't fix all your problems. You have to then be the one to make the change or take the aligned action. But the really cool thing is we create capacity in our nervous system for change. Most people know what they should be doing, but they're so stuck and trapped in fear and survival that they can't take those steps forward. They can't take the aligned action because the body is wired for familiarity. So if it's not something you've done before, it's not something that your body feels safe doing. So it gives you the capacity to make change. It also gives you a lot of creativity, life force energy. You feel clear. You feel like you can take on the world in many ways, and change just becomes easier. And it's actually at that nervous system science level of what's happening. But I do love that question because I don't think that your audience, I know my audience is I speak to light workers. I'm here for the new earth leaders. I'm here for people who want to create a better life, not just for themselves, but for the collective at large. And in understanding that as a mission of us light worker human beings, we're here to take action, right? So I think it's just long-winded way of saying that we have to be an active participant, but it makes it easier. It's hard to make those changes without a tool like this.
Right. It almost opens, you said it, it opens up the door. It opens up the neural pathway for then our action to take effect and start rewiring. And I've noticed that too, because I've done everything from microdose to that amount where I can sort of feel this and I'm really joyous and happy, which is really just expressing who I am even more so. And I've done the hero dose too. And I'll actually link in the show notes. Don't need to get into that, but it was the most spiritual experience of my life, most connected to God, to earth, to Sandy, to our child who was in her belly at the time, our firstborn Cameron, so many things, and link that separately in the show notes. But you realize it helps accentuate and express where you are or your intention for it. And Sandy, if you have anything, ask away. But that's what I loved about the microflow, and that's could be a good transition into the origin of that and everything, because it's not just hey, here's a magic pill. It's set an intention before taking this, even though you aren't going to even feel it perceptually. Things are going to be happening. So set an intention, and how have you used that? And then that could be a great segue into Christy kind of sharing the microflow origin.
Yeah.
Because Sandy's very intentional.
The way I'm going to share is I love how you're sharing, and you're so educated and your words and everything, I'm like, I could just listen to you all day. I'm just going to share from my heart as like the receiver of the medicine, like what it feels like for me. So, and you guys can read about this on her site, but Microflow, she developed this company, this product that is intended to sync with your cycle. So, and that doesn't mean like men can still take it, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah, men, it doesn't
It's
mean
funny.
men.
I always reach toward Exude. I'm like, do I want to surrender today? No. I'm like, I should probably. That means
That
I
is
should
so
take it.
typical for our male customers. I can't
Yes.
even. Yep.
Yes. So it male or female, but like I love that you created it intentionally, like to sync with your cycle. And if someone's listening that doesn't have a cycle, or maybe you're in menopause or whatever, there's different guidance on how you can still use the medicine, right, Christy? Don't you sync it with the moon cycle?
The lunar phases, yes.
The lunar phases. Okay, yeah. So anyway, I am a cycling like person, and so I follow it. I'm gonna mess up which ones with which. I literally have to go to your site and then look at my app of where I am in my period, and then always like double check and match where I'm at. But remind me, exude is when you're in which phases?
So you take exude while you are in your follicular and your ovulatory phases. So once you finish bleeding through ovulation, and then you switch to surrender for like the second half of the month after ovulation. So you're in your luteal phase through menstruation.
Got it. Okay, yes.
And almost for the men or anyone listening out there, it's like, I mean, the men have different cycles, but like follicular and ovulatory are like when it's like, okay, I'm creative, I can express, I can build, and I forget menstrual and whatever the other one is like more of the internal, right? Like, let me go within, right? So there's kind of this matching up of the medicine or the pill, exude or surrender, with those phases.
Yeah.
Right?
So, as women in our reproductive years, I like to tell people we go through 4 seasons every single month in our body. So our follicular and ovulatory phases are our inner spring and our inner summer seasons. And that when it's like, think about when you finish your period, it feels like spring, like you have energy again, like the fog has lifted, you're ready to create, you have energy to create, you want to see your friends. If you notice like when you want to if you notice when you book a lot of things on your calendar, like let's hang out with these people, and then you usually do it when you're in your ovulatory phase because we are wired for connection and outward expression. And then maybe by the time those plans hit, you're like, well, damn it, I'm in my luteal and menstrual. Like, why did ovulatory me want to plan that? But those phases are all
I'm always
about
ovulating.
yeah, and men are different because men only really go on a circadian rhythm. Your hormones are the same every 24 hours. I'd like to say men are the sun, women are the moon. So we are biologically completely different. And then Microflow is just enhancing those energetic phases we're already experiencing. So we're not fighting against our own nervous system. And then in the luteal and menstrual phases, it is more of a time for introspection and inward inflection and integration, right? And so the rose combined with the psilocybin and the surrender blend really helps you surrender. And if we think about it together, we can't always be in our masculine and in that creation mode, and we can't always just be in our feminine and think we can just like lay on the beach and receive, $5 million, like some people will say on the internet space. You just have to be in your feminine. A healthy human is a coherent human, which means we have really beautifully integrated divine feminine and divine masculine. Whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, we all have masculine and feminine energetics, and rotating between exude and surrender help you bring that balance of the yin and the yang energies.
How would a man know, like, what would they start with, and how would they switch between
I'm
the
ready
exude
to
and
be
the
in
surrender?
a lay on the beach, receive 5 million season. I don't think I've ever entered that season. It's probably about time for me to.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Some of like the feminine
Yeah.
entrepreneur coaches.
You can just receive it in without actually
don't have to
taking
work, you don't have to do anything. I'm like, I'm all
Yeah.
about being in my feminine and receptivity, and I get that's like part of the process, but let's be real.
They're like,
the
I'm
feminine
paid to exist.
the feminine can visualize and conceptualize it and all the things and get all the energetic setup for it, and then the masculine's like, okay, time to take action on the vision.
We need a container. We need the structure for the feminine to feel safe to continue to flow. But men
so
sorry.
Go ahead. I want to hear what you're going to say first.
men can sync the blends to the lunar phases if they'd like. So
Okay.
while the moon is, if you just like think about the moon, half the month it's getting bigger, right? Half the month the energy is building. So
Mm.
while the moon is waxing through the full moon, a man could take exude. And then half the month the moon is getting smaller again. So when the moon is waning and through the new moon, a man could take surrender. All humans are influenced by the moon. And with that said, I feel like the cycle syncing aspect is the most appropriate for women because we are cycling beings. A lot of men also, just like Wade was saying, what do I want to take today? Like, they can just take the blends intuitively. You can't get it wrong. Like,
Yeah.
Sandy, even if you took exude while you were bleeding, like, it's not wrong. There's nothing you can do bad. So if anybody feels overwhelmed by this information, just know that the cycle syncing aspect is just like a level up to the already magic things that happen with microdosing.
Yes. So for anyone listening, I would say if you're really curious about this, I feel like a great place to start, and what was gifted to me originally by my friend, is I would imagine they're your best sellers, the Exude and the Surrender, like that package together.
Yes.
That's how I started. She also has a product called Theta that I've tried a couple of times intentionally, and that's more than a microdose, right? And that is when you're intentionally using it to do like a breath work session or be out in nature. I forget what you called it on one of your podcasts when you like
Microdosing.
microdosing. Yes. But that's
So good.
like, you want to stay away. Like, you shouldn't drive when you're doing that, right?
Correct. No.
Yeah. No, that was, yeah. When we did that, we walked the neighborhood, like we kept it, local or whatever. But so then she has that blend, and I'd love for you to share more about that. And then I saw, which I haven't tried yet myself, but that you recently also launched, is it called Rapid Release?
Yeah. Rapid Relief.
Relief. Okay, sorry. Rapid Relief. I'm super excited to try that. But can you share what those two are too?
Yeah, so, if you're new to microdosing, or even if you are a veteran microdoser, you're going to want to do your daily microdosing or your 4 to 5 days a week with Exude and Surrender. That's what those blends were created for. Theta is more of a level up. I created Theta to take you deeper into intentional somatic experiences. So a lot of people will pair Theta with therapy with their therapist, or with somatic therapy, or with body work, fascia release, massage work, intimacy work with a partner. It's really beautiful in women's circles or men's circles, going out and spending all day in nature, or maybe doing a creative business dump day. But essentially, you want to carve out minimally 4 hours where you don't have to drive. And the really cool thing about Theta is I didn't formulate it to be a macrodose. Now, technically, you could take more capsules to make it a macrodose, but it's a deeper experience that people can still integrate. As a health practitioner, my greatest thing that I teach is nervous system capacity and resourcing, because we exist in a world where most of us are overwhelmed. Okay. So even if we're healthy, health conscious people, I like to remind people that an overwhelmed nervous system is very easy to overwhelm. And we can overwhelm our nervous system even with the healthiest of all the habits, with diets, supplements, detoxes, all of the biohacks every day, different drainage therapies, different therapy. Like, if we're trying to put so many inputs into a system that does not have the capacity to integrate all of that at once, we are quite literally going to blow a fuse in the circuitry of our own nervous system. We're going to burn out. So the goal with microdosing is to create resourcing. It's to create capacity within the system. And that, starting with Exude and Surrender is going to do that. And then moving up to Theta, if and when you ever feel ready. Again, it's a dose that the body can still integrate without taking your full consciousness offline. And I'm all about someone, if they want to do a macrodose, but that's not really the Theta experience either. It is still more embodied. You can have mystical experiences and you feel really connected to God, and you can have, a deeper experience if you want, but it's one that's easier to integrate. Rapid Relief is our newest blend. It's not necessarily for daily microdosing. I created it to be the only thing you need in your medicine cabinet in healthy home. So it is the new replacement for Advil, Tylenol, Motrin, Midol, really like any acute ache, pain, maybe even like really acute anxiety. It can help in that situation. But a different use than the other blends.
So like if you have a headache, you would take that.
Yes, like if you have period cramps, if you have a headache or a migraine, maybe you fell and you have a shoulder injury and you want to take that for a couple weeks instead of leaning on something else. We've had a ton of customers who have used rapid relief instead of like a pharmaceutical post-surgical pain.
Mm-hmm.
So like why I actually created it is like a lot of us, I'm assuming, yeah, you said you're 36. A lot of us millennials are much more open-minded in like holistic care than our parents and our grandparents generation. And it's like we love our parents and we just want them to be on our level, but we can't force that, right? So I always say like slip this in your parents' medicine cabinet and just tell them to start with one swap. So instead of taking their Advil every day, like start with this. And there is a slight dose of psilocybin. So it's psilocybin, a strong microdose of psilocybin, a strong dose of CBD, and then a blend of like 5 anti-inflammatory, anti-pain herbs. But it's really cool because we launched it in December. So we've been getting floods of feedback now the last few months. It's only been out in the world for a few months of like, I did what you told me to do. I, gave this to my parent for what XYZ pain. And now they're starting to question like the government. They're starting to question different things and they don't even realize all of this stuff that's coming up. So it is a great starting point for people who maybe just want like the pain relief and they don't want to go all in right away.
Wow.
So good.
I don't have a lot of pain, but sometimes I get like headaches or something like that. So I do want to have that in my medicine cabinet as a resource. So if someone is microdosing with like Surrender or Exude, would they still, if they had like a headache,
you could still layer them. Yeah, it's still low enough dose that you can take it together.
Okay, cool.
I think what could be good is how, like, for the audience to hear, like, Sandy, how you've used an integrated microflow into your life as a part of the journey.
Yes.
And then we've sort of talked about Exude, Surrender, all the different offerings, but also I think bringing it back to you, Christy, where like anything that for someone listening, like, okay, wait, what is Microflow, to like understand the big picture?
Yeah.
But like, Sandy, how has it been? How has Microflow helped you? Or like, what has been your experience with it?
Yeah. So like I said, I started like consistently using it in November of 2025. I definitely noticed a difference in my overall anxiety. Like I don't like to like empower this. I know our words are important, but like I do struggle with anxiety. And for months postpartum, I felt, and I would tell this to Wade every day, I'm like, there's so much heaviness. Like I just want to remove the heaviness. Like I just
on her
feel
chest,
on my
like it
chest.
felt like a lead weight was on her chest.
Yes, and I would do so many different types of talk therapy and ART and EMDR and somatic healings and I went to like all these special people. I went to that trauma healing retreat. I did everything and it wouldn't go away. Like it wouldn't. It just kind of lived with me. I was like, is this the new me? Like this sucks. And I would tell him like, I don't even know why I feel like this. I just feel like there's nothing bad that happened. I didn't have bad dreams, but I just woke up and I want to fall back asleep. Like I just don't like this feeling of feeling stuck. And I noticed very quickly, like I honestly want to say it was the first time I took it. I told Wade, I was like, babe, I took that Exude stuff today and it's been like 4 hours and I don't feel the heaviness on my chest. Like it was a physical feeling that I could feel the difference of. And I'm very sensitive to all things. Like I don't drink either anymore. That was one of my postpartum realizations. I was like, higher self Sandy doesn't drink anymore. Like I've never meant to touch alcohol again. I've like feel like I've like outgrown that or whatever. But even when I did drink one drink and I'm like, woo, like I am like feeling it. Right. And so I was
Margarita
like,
Sandy is a fun time.
She's in the past. But
anyway, now it's microdose.
I was scared with the microdose. Like I'm going to really feel this. And I just felt better, but I didn't feel high. I didn't feel influenced. I didn't feel like I was doing anything that I wouldn't normally do. I felt like my day flowed. I felt like I would start a project, like whether it was like cleaning out my kid's closet or like doing laundry or organizing something. And next thing you know, I'm like, holy crap, look at this, what I just did. Like I would go above and beyond what I even intended to do. And I would just feel like things were flowing and like just this good energy of like, wow, like I feel so, I don't even know how to put it other than like in flow. Like, you know, that feeling when you're in flow and you're like, I just like, it was just coming out of me. It was just so natural. Like that's just how I would feel. And even if it was a day, because I just recently started re-entering work, but like I took it like a 9-month maternity leave where I didn't touch our business. I didn't do anything. So most of these things I'm sharing are experiences of like mothering or in the household of something that I would start. Like, oh, I'm going to organize the pantry. Next thing you know, everything's out. I'm vacuuming. I'm wiping it down. I'm this and that. Wade's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I just took an exude this morning, and like, I'm like, I feel amazing. Like I'm in a complete flow state.
Have you noticed like more presence or less like getting irritated by the kids or like anything in that realm?
Yes, I feel less like quick to react.
But you're a very quick to react.
Well, yeah, I live in fight or flight. Like I just do, and I'm working on that. And I do think the neurofeedback that we do, that I do, helps with that too. So it's hard to say like this is because of Microflow, but
theta into neurofeedback sessions.
That could be really good. Yeah. Yeah, but so it could be like, you know, a multiple thing that's happening here, but I really do feel like when I was starting to run out of them, I told Wade, I'm like, I want Santa to have my stocking full of Microflow. Okay. Like that's what's up.
And it was.
I got the 3-pack with the Theta, Exude, and Surrender in my stocking, which I was like, yes, this is like all I need to continue my healing journey. But yeah, I just truly feel like it takes off the edge. And as someone that can really get sucked into like things can get like blown up bigger than they need to be in my brain, and I just like start going down the rabbit hole, and like things get exaggerated, and I get panicky about things. I've just noticed since I've been doing this protocol for like, gosh, over 3 months now, and I don't do it every single day. Like I'm intuitive about it. Sometimes there's a week where I don't do it at all. Yeah. But then I'm like, oh, I want to get back on with the rhythm. But since I've been doing it, I just feel it's crazy. I had a shift like with him in January. We went to Maui, just me and him. And I had told him originally, I was like, I want to take a 1-year maternity leave. I know people don't really do that when they're entrepreneurs, but we built this thing. I get to do whatever I want. Like I'm not working for a year. And then I had this like epiphany where I was like, you know what? I'm never going to work the way I once did, but things that fuel me and things like I'm just a natural share. When something like changes me on like a cellular level and I really feel like it's helping me, I am going to actually get back online, even though it's only been 9 months postpartum. I don't care that I made up the rule about 1 year. I am coming back out and I'm sharing this because I know there's people that need to like hear this. And so I just feel like it helped me in so many ways shift from being in my cocoon and feeling like stuck and limited and small and heavy and anxious, to just feeling more alive and more awake, and like the parts of Sandy that have been dormant have been like woken up again. And so I don't know, that's like the best way to describe like my testimonial, I guess.
Wow, it's so beautiful. And I love what you just finished with. It makes you feel more of Sandy, because one of the biggest fears I've heard in the past from women who are, you know, not really into quote unquote drugs. We do not call mushrooms drugs. They are pure medicine, but they're like, I don't want to become a new person. Like they want to change, but they're afraid. Like we were literally programmed with Dare and like all of the commercials growing up online or growing up, not online, on TV in the 90s, of showing our brain as like an egg that's going to be scrambled if we take a psychedelic, when in fact it's quite literally the opposite. It heals our brain. But people are afraid of, you know, losing themselves, losing their freaking mind. And what happens is exactly what you just said. We actually become more of ourselves without the shackles of the pain, the shame, the programming. We get to be who we came here to be, like all of ourselves, fully expressed, fully soul aligned, our creative energy turned online. Like that's what it's all about. You're not going to change. You're not going to lose your mind. It makes you more of you. And people will always say, thank you for like changing my life. And I'm like, you changed your life. The medicine really just showed you the way. It took away all of that heaviness that you're talking about. And that makes so much sense, especially in such a sensitive time like postpartum. Like there's so much crap conditioning with women's healthcare, but postpartum is a nervous system event. Even like the flooding of so much love that you feel for a child in a body that's overwhelmed and under-resourced, even like all of that exploding love can make you go crazy because you don't have the capacity to actually integrate it and hold it. So the microdosing is creating those new neural network. It's increasing your capacity to literally hold it all of the good things and even the frustrating things where like stress doesn't feel as stressful anymore. Like the goal is to not get rid of all stress in our life. That's not like realistic with being a human. It's to increase our tolerance and our stress resilience. And that's really what the medicine helps us do. For a lot of postpartum women, when I was talking earlier about softening that default mode network, a lot of postpartum depression, for example, often revolves around these really rigid rumination loops like, I am not enough, I'm failing myself, I've lost myself, like, am I ever going to get back to myself? And microdosing really softens that rigidity and allows you to find the core of who you are again. It strengthens the energetic transmission between you and baby, and just really, it's also really, there's a lot of physiological benefits. Like, it is anti-inflammatory. It's one of the most anti-inflammatory agents as well. So if you are dealing with body inflammation, neuroinflammation in the brain, it's going to also calm that. So you're going to feel the physiological shifts, the energetic shifts, the spiritual shifts all around. It's so beautiful, and you're just like a walking testament to that.
Thank you.
I think too, for the non-postpartum mom, or like the man listening, like my experience has been like, whether microdosing, I've also done the hero dose, but like, let's say microdosing has been, it expresses me and who I am more, like, to the fullest, which I think your soul feels so aligned and like happiest and like most joy and presence when you're like fully being yourself. But also it really does bring me present, like whatever I'm doing, if it's work, especially creative work, I enjoy on it. But if it's the other day I was microdosed that day, and I was just jumping on the trampoline with my daughters. They're 4 and 2, and we have so much fun. And I'm a very like goal oriented, driven, future thinking. Like, I don't think about the past. I feel very blessed. Like, I don't really deal with much anxiety. Like, I'm the least stressed, like happiest person ever,
It's
naturally
good. Our
wired.
household needs someone to
We
balance
needed a
me out.
balance, yeah. But like for me, like I can get caught up in like, I need to be productive, I need to produce, I need to create, I need to build. I'm thinking about the future. So usually when I'm on the trampoline, I'm there and I'm having a ton of fun. And so are my girls, and they feel me there with them. But I also can be thinking about all the things I need to do. And the other day I realized I'm like, I'm so here right now and I'm so present, and I could care less about anything else. And there's other stuff to care about, but I don't need to care about it right here. And it was like that joy only happens in the present moment. So it does bring me present, and it almost expresses who I am. And I think as you take more, like, you can go to a concert, microdose, or even a little bit more, and you're going to have like a ton of fun in that environment. Or you can be doing creative work, or you can be at the beach with your family, and it's really going to like express where you are and who you are. And so that's kind of the benefits that I've realized. I think, Christy, I do want to ask some, like, I'll call them hard hitting questions. So what we've gained from this interview so far is like, one, Microflow is founded on your experience, your I guess I'll call it trauma from childhood, your healing, your own research, and then kind of bring it to the world. We've kind of talked to the offerings. What else? Like, what is Microflow's mission, or like, what did we miss about Microflow? Someone listening, like, what do they need to know about Microflow? And then I'd love to ask you some of this stuff before we hit record. We were talking about, I'm like, I'm gonna ask that one.
Okay. Two things are really coming through when you're asking that question. You both have shared beautiful stories, and these are not unusual. I have thousands and thousands and thousands of testimonials saved to our Instagram highlights and on our website. However, I do want to make something super, super clear. So, psilocybin is what I like to call an illuminator. It's going to illuminate all of the things you have both shared: our joy, our love, our presence, our connectivity, our creativity, our connection to ourself, to God, to the earth, to our children, to our family. All of that is wonderful. Microdosing is not going to make you high. It should bring a sparkle to your life. But at the same time, an illuminator is also going to illuminate your shadow. It's going to make the unconscious conscious, and it can bring your shadow to light, which can sound scary to a lot of people, but that's where the real healing happens, because we can't heal what we're unaware of. So what I want to make very clear is that you had an experience, Sandy, where you felt the lift day one. So did I. My first 6 weeks of microdosing were pure freaking bliss. I've never felt more happy to be alive on this earth. But around the 6 week mark, I had a lot of anger come up. A lot of freaking anger. And this happens a lot too. And people think, oh my gosh, it's just not working for me. But what is actually happening for certain people is the medicine is not making you anxious or angry or tired. The medicine is showing you that anger or those patterns that have been stewing and existing within your subconscious for years, for decades, or for a lifetime. So that takes me back to what Wade was saying earlier, that that's when we really have to work with the medicine. If those feelings or sensations are coming up, it's not like, how do I escape my body? How do I get rid of this? How do I make it better? We have to listen. We have to ask. We have to be grateful that it is showing us and revealing the pattern. And then from there, we can say, like, what are you trying to show me? And what's the next step? What do I need to change? For some people, like, they're in a shitty marriage. For some people, they're in a super unaligned job. For some people, it's just bringing up old repressed things. But the really cool thing is the medicine gives us the capacity to actually process it, metabolize it, liberate it, and heal it once and for all. So I do just want to make it clear that, as incredible as it sounds, that it is for a lot of people, some people, the shadows come up before the sparkle. I have a whole podcast episode on this. It's called it's all about the nervous system thaw and why it sometimes feels worse before it feels better. I definitely recommend people listening to that, because there's so much there. So that is one thing I wanted to mention, because I don't want people who may have a different experience than you to think they're doing it wrong.
And I want to interject there too and say, like, if you guys are just listening to this episode, like, you need to understand what I did before I started Microflow. Like, I did so much different types of therapies and healing modalities. And I literally left my family for 3 weeks and went to a trauma healing retreat working under doctors and energy healers. And like, I don't really know anyone that's left their newborn and done something like that. Like, I did ketamine therapy. Like, I did so many things. And then I found Microflow. It wasn't like I just was depressed and anxious and just started popping these pills. Like, it was part of my journey, and I was ready for it. And I did my research, and someone that I really trusted and loved, sent it to me, and I trusted that. And so, yeah, like, I think with anything, you have to do a gut check and feel like, is this a full body yes for me? And actually, she sent it to me in like July, and it sat in my cabinet, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to take that. And then I finally got to a point where I was like, I'm still not doing well. Like, let me try this, right? And I had to get to that timing on my own, but I'm glad you said that.
The illuminator word is like the perfect way to describe it, because yes, it's going to soften the edges. It's going to soften a little bit of the anxiety, the stress. It's probably going to bring you more presence. It's going to have that glimmer, that sparkle, like you said. But at the end of the day, you're so right. It is an illuminator. If there's triggers and trauma, it's going to, like you said earlier, it's going to be like, hey, like, let's say I have triggers or trauma, and it's going to say, hey, wait, here they are. Look, you're expressing them. So now they're there, so you can feel it. You have the emotion, and it's there, and we can acknowledge it. And here, hey, wait, I'm going to open up the door, like you said earlier, like the neural pathway door that has been like pretty locked shut, and like you just want to keep it there, and your brain's trying to keep you sane. It's like, let's open the door. Here it is. Now, like, we got to work together. Like, I'm doing my part. Like, you got to look into that, because triggers are just signs like, hey, here's something inside of me that I need to kind of address and work on, because you aren't meant to live with triggers your whole life. And not to make this a trauma or trigger episode, but we're all always constantly and continuously working on that. And that's just what life's all about. But the illumination, yeah, that's such, and we hear about that, when people do the ayahuasca, and the difference of, as you do more and higher doses, there's an illumination and expression of, honestly, like, what you need in life. And that's why it comes back to medicine. All right, Christy, I want to ask you before we wrap, I think a few things. I'm going to start with, when I did a hero dose is the first time I ever did psilocybin, and I just trust my friend. And I will say, and maybe answer this too in your answer at some point. When I was in my 20s, I was like scared of psychedelics, because I was like, I actually am good with my paradigms. I don't need my world and the way I look at the world, my paradigms and my brain shifted. And I think what I've understood in research, we're kind of wiring through at least like our mid 20s, 26. And there's probably a brain preservation, like, hey, don't do psychedelics in your young age, because let your brain wire itself first, and then we can start to wire and unwire. So I was kind of scared of it. And then in my 30s, there was a shift, and I was like, you know what? About to have my first child. Sandy's pregnant. I'm going to go away to Joshua Tree for my buddy. He's about to get married. He's like asking me to be part of this sacred ceremony. There was so much intention behind it, and gratitude and visualization and all the things. And it was the most profound spiritual, connected to God and everything I've ever felt in my life. It was absolutely amazing. I actually tried to recreate it with him, and we just didn't get there because it wasn't the same intention and energy and everything. And it was just like a fine, like, I'm sort of going through a trip, but there's nothing profound about it. Anyways, all of that said, was scared of it, and it's become beautiful. And now I think it's more meant to be used in the microdose or as a medicine. And I think where people can, it's easy to want to almost escape to it a lot. And I think that's where some people can go wrong with it. But it's this balance of living in our world and integrating our world after the microdose. So let's talk about, I know I threw a bunch of things at you, but I do want to talk about, like, I had such a God, spiritual source connected experience the first time I did it, which was 5 grams in Joshua Tree, which is an energetic place in and of itself. And we had a lot of intention. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Now I think I feel, and what I've even talked to some people about is like, and for me, I'm like, here's the other thing. Or a mushroom, psilocybin, is like God made it. It's from the earth. It grows out of the soil. Humans have found a way they could grow it, yes, but like it's literally from the earth. Alcohol is a man-made thing. Like,
Right.
yes, God made humans and all the things and the fruits that you distill and all the stuff. So technically, but like at the end of the day, it's like alcohol is man-made and it's a toxin, and we feel hungover after. And there's this like cost to drinking alcohol. Mushrooms, my experience has been like, one, it's organic from the earth, and you feel that, and you feel really connected to the earth. And then you almost are like lighter. It's almost the opposite of a hangover. You're almost better coming out of it, which is really cool. And just as such an intuitive sign. But for people who are like, how does this interact with God, with spirituality? It feels, especially maybe Christian faith, like, is this a little bit of the like woo-woo side of things? Like, how do you think about and talk about that?
Yes, I have had the same experiences. I've never felt closer to God than when working with mushrooms. I grew up Catholic. I kind of went through religious deconstruction, but that does not mean that I do not have, like, Jesus is still, of course, part of my life, and so is God. I just don't believe in the rules and rigidity of religion. But when I get this question from my community, I have a lot of Christian-based people that I have guided and served throughout the years who had some apprehensions, which is totally understandable because we have been programmed from a very young age. And even inside religion, unfortunately, there is a lot of programming to keep us from the true essence of God. But with that said, if we just look back in history, Paleo-Christianity, which is the origin of Christianity, they worked with mushrooms. So every single Sunday, community would gather. It was a woman, it was a female, it was a high priestess channeling up in the front of the ceremony. And when people would go up to receive the body of Christ and drink the blood of Christ, it was a little mushroom and a little swig of ayahuasca. And people were not just sitting in chairs and kneeling on pews and being preached to about, how they should act and what they should feel and do. They got to experience divinity embodied. That was how true connection to Christ consciousness began. It was with the support of these sacred earth medicines, like you said, that were God grown. And, we're conditioned to think we have 5 senses, and that's just false, right? We have a multitude of senses. We are multi-dimensional beings, and the microdosing can help soften what we perceive to be just our sight through these 2 eyeballs right here. And it opens up, from a scientific level, it turns on our pineal gland, which is our multidimensional vision, which is our third eye consciousness that connects us to all realms. We are always connected to God. I could go on a whole tangent. I'm not going to take it there because I would be
Is
here
there
for so
like a
long.
resource? I'm so intrigued by that, of where I could learn more. Like, what era was this? Like, we don't have the time to go into all the answers here, but like, I love
There are a
that
few really good books
yeah,
about, I'll have to send them to you. I don't remember
yeah.
the names of the books off the top of my head. But like the origin of Paleo Christianity and these different, a lot of it like originated in Greece. I'll find the books and send them your way. So if you
Perfect.
want to know like the Christian origin, you can start there. But, just understanding, like, I don't believe in God as like an old man in the sky who says you are do good things and you go to heaven, and you're bad and you go to hell. Once you start to actually experience the true essence of God and the true essence of yourself, it's so undeniable, and it's completely paradigm shifting, and it is so holy. It is so pure. It makes us the best version of ourselves. If the world was microdosing, we would be living in the golden era. We would be living in a time
Seriously.
with pure peace, and where people were embodying Christ consciousness, oneness, unity consciousness. And that's what most people report when they first start working with mushrooms. It's like this concept that you understand that you are a drop in the ocean. You are, we are connected to all. We are all brothers and sisters. We are all one. That's literally what Jesus was preaching. His whole message was the kingdom of heaven is within. And the mushrooms really teach you that concept in like a week. It's quite crazy.
Well, I love something you just said made me think this too, like the oneness and like the drop in the ocean, like even on a microdose, like I notice things that normally I might not notice so much more, like the steam coming off my tea. Yes. I'm like, oh my gosh. Or like if I'm on a walk, I'm like, oh, I love like the feeling of the breeze and like the chirping birds. And you just feel like you are part of, like, we're all meant to be, we all play an important part in the world. And like, I just feel like in doing it, you just notice these things that are easy to overlook or just be too busy to notice or appreciate. Mm-hmm. But then you just like see the beauty in everyday things.
You're so attuned to gratitude because it opens your heart. Mm-hmm. And when your heart is open, like you are alive. That's who we are at your core. And like, I know we're all entrepreneurs here. That's the point, right? When like with health, I always say to people, like, we don't live to heal. Our whole life should not be like a 12-hour healing routine. Believe me, I've been there. That's what I used to think. We heal to live. Like health is the foundation so we can live our most fully expressed life. But same with wanting financial freedom. It's to be able to enjoy those spacious mornings with our family and like take in the love of our partner and our children and sip a warm cup of tea and not have to be thinking about the next thing all the time. Like we create these lives based on liberation and freedom. So, I mean, we say that this is why we do it, is so we can like be more present and do the things that we love. And like this actually helps us remember that. And it really just opens our heart.
100%. It connects us to that. And I think on the microdose level, it's almost that. It's like that microdose, like gratitude, being in nature, just noticing it more, feeling more connected to it, feeling more aligned, feeling more connected to God and your soul and everything. And then on the macrodose or hero dose level, I'm not recommending people necessarily do that, and I think that's my next question. We'll wrap it, but I had this just profound, like, God is in all of us, God is love, God is energy, we're all connected by it. It was just like, it's really, even it was so profound, like I can't even verbalize it, like there's not like words to even describe it. That's probably as best as I could, or like in short order.
It teaches you that you are the creator. Like you can, the basis of my teaching for health is that for us to remember, we build the capacity within, we build the clarity in our vessel to remember that we are the creator and we truly came here to have it all. And that is the teaching of Jesus. So anyone, who is faith-based and they're a little nervous about it, like it's all aligned, truly.
To wrap it, who is Microflow or who is psilocybin not for, and who is it for? And I know that's broad, but kind of like in short, and then love to know where we can get further connected with you. We'll ask that, I guess, next. But who is it not for, and who's it for?
So there absolutely are some contraindications when it comes to working with any psychedelic, especially psilocybin, even in micro doses. But I would say that if you have a history of schizophrenia or even mania, I mean, I do know people who have actually healed bipolar fully from working with mushrooms, but I do have to put the caveat out there that if you have had any like major psychotic break in the past, you have to be aware. It's not a hard no. Schizophrenia is probably a hard no. If you are working with SSRIs, medications, benzos, there aren't any hard yes and no rules. My philosophy is that I typically like to see what someone is on, microdosing is wonderful for helping you wean off those medications. So I like to say, do not combine your SSRI. This is not medical advice, but do not combine your SSRI and Microflow beyond 60 days. Have a weaning plan in place if you're taking medications, and use the Microflow to help you start taking less and less of your medication until the microdosing is like your new baseline. You know, there's nuances there. And I would say you have to be willing to do the work. I mean, this isn't for someone who wants to just have a quick fix, because like I said, it can bring that beautiful sparkle to your life and it can bring about so much change. But at the same time, you are recalibrating your nervous system. It can illuminate some more challenging things. And ultimately, it's the tool to help us become free of those things, but we have to perhaps be willing to journal through it, perhaps be willing to sit with ourselves and look at our own patterns and, you know, assess the role that we play in our own suffering. So I think it really is important to be for the people who are willing to work with the medicine and work intentionally and honor the indigenous wisdom and, you know, just have reverence for this medicine. And then I would say it is for most people. Like we've served tens of thousands of people over the last several years, and I can't even think of a handful of people that we've had to like say this is not for you at this point. So anyone who wants to heal their body, heal their nervous system, ultimately heal their hormones and their gut, because those are all downstream effects of our identity level, our trauma, our nervous system. If you want to heal and upgrade your body, if you want to rewire your mind, if you want to unlock your limitless, infinite possibility and become the creator that you came to this planet to be, I would say it's for you. Anyone who wants to have better health, better love, better connection, better life.
I
love
agree.
that.
So I
If
think
the
it was like
world,
everyone listening.
if
Yeah.
the world was microdosing, like, oh my gosh, the cohesion, the collected consciousness, the spirituality, it would just be unreal.
What about like pregnant or nursing? Probably, I don't know. No? Or is that like up to the discretion of the person?
I have a strong opinion on this. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's never going to be any modern research done on this. They're not
Yeah.
going to do modern research on pregnant and breastfeeding women. They just don't do that. So I like to look past the data and into the indigenous wisdom. And if we look back tens of thousands of years, a lot of women in tribes worked with psilocybin throughout pregnancy, throughout birth ceremony. It was part of a birth ceremony process, and throughout the postpartum breastfeeding process. And microdosing while breastfeeding was not only said to be safe, but beneficial to the neurodevelopment of baby, to the energetic transmission between mother and baby, and then to the emotional processing and the nervous system softening and resourcing of the mother so she could be the best mother ever for her family. So with that said, discernment is key here. I always tell, you know, I share the wisdom, I share the indigenous wisdom with my community, and people make a choice. I do have some people who stop microdosing because they feel like that's the call for them. And then many women in our community have chosen to continue to microdose throughout pregnancy. And then especially the postpartum era has been just like life-changing. So many women who have had 2 kids before finding us had the worst postpartum, and then on their 3rd or 4th baby they started microdosing right away, and it was just like life-changing postpartum experience.
Wow. Yeah, I'm curious about that because it seems, you know, it's funny because like people pregnant and or breastfeeding or freshly postpartum, a lot of them are taking SSRIs or like, you know, antidepressants or these different like pharmaceutical things. And there's some that they say don't take when you're breastfeeding because that can like transfer, but or like even during pregnancy, like I've told like people do have a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine. And to me, it's like that actually seems, if we're going to judge it at all, to me, that seems a little more harmful than
Intuitively,
like,
something that grows from the soil, from the fungi, which is really, I think you said this at one point, but like it's almost like the circle of life. It decomposes things to then be regrown. Like fungi makes the world go round. It's like the circle of life. And so intuitively, obviously there's not going to be research on it, but
I was just wondering,
a
what
lot
you would say
of
to
sense.
that.
But
So,
yeah, obviously up to everyone's own discretion. And I think we're indoctrinated, like we're pregnant. You can't, Western medicine has like, these are the rules of it. But also kind of trust your intuition there.
Really quick before we transition to the end, about Microflow, like where are they made? How do you source it? Like, can you finish up with some of that so people know if they're taking this, where is it? How is it being formulated?
Totally. Yeah, this is probably my favorite thing to talk about because we have had so many customers throughout the years who have said, you know, I've microdosed in the past, the experience wasn't that great. I found Microflow and it's a totally different experience. Like I am all about the cleanliness and the purity and the clean vibration of our medicine. So we are 100% organically grown. To keep up, I mean, it's hard to control the outdoor environment, right? So we have a greenhouse and we grow our mushrooms under Hertz frequency music, so under God Hertz and under Earth Hertz frequency.
Wow.
No pesticides, chemicals, anything is ever used. And then there's absolutely 0 fillers or preservatives in our capsules. It's just 3 ingredients per capsule. So psilocybin, lion's mane, which works really beautifully with the nervous system in combination with psilocybin. And then Exude has raw cacao, Surrender has raw rose petal, and Theta has pure blue lotus sourced from Egypt. Those herbs that we source, we get third-party lab tested for heavy metals and contaminants. They truly are the highest vibration. I pray over them, like I clean the energy. They're just radically the highest cleanliness, and something that is, people would be shocked to hear this piece. So at our level, we do really high output. Like we've been in the business now for 4 years. I have a really large community, and people would think we're probably manufacturing in some huge manufacturing facility with the big machinery, because most people at our level would. We still use hand capsuling machines that you can only do like 800 capsules at a time. Reason being is if we were to outsource to those big manufacturing machines, you have to add fillers and like flow agents for the powders to flow. And that's what sensitive bodies are typically reacting to. So like what can take us 40 plus hours could take a machine like 4 seconds. So we put like we just like walk our talk all the way through.
I love
Made
that.
with love. Handmade
made
with
with
love.
so much love and
And
intention.
That makes sense why, like some people might look at the price point and be like, that's expensive, but I want to invite people to think of it as like an investment in your health.
And Christy has been nice enough to give us a discount code. I'll
Yes.
drop it in the
Yes.
description.
And just to be clear, with the Exude and Surrender bundle, it should be about a 3-month supply for most people. So, you know, we're right around the $200 price point, which is actually common for most blends, but our quality is way higher. And a lot of people are only giving like a 1-month supply. So it is, I always say, if you commit, you want to commit to at least 3 months to begin doing your 4-ish days, 5 days a week. But that Exude and Surrender blend, if your sweet spot ends up being 1 capsule, which it is for the majority of women, it is about a 3-month supply. So it'll last you a while.
Amazing.
I love that. Yeah, I'm so grateful that you
thank
were here.
Thank you.
It's funny. I was flying home from North Carolina end of January, visiting my friend that gave me Microflow, and her and I did a theta experience together, and we like did a like a sound bath healing and like journaled like crazy, and we were just like laughing and having so much fun, and like just me and her, like we were sorority best friends and have been for like 15 years. And on that flight home, I had not been on Instagram in like 9 months, and I was like, I'm literally going to download Instagram, find this gal, and I'm going to message her, and I'm going to get her on my podcast because people need to know about her. And then I waited like a day, and you didn't respond, and I'm like, I'm going to email her too.
I love it. Well, I'm glad you did. I'm so happy to be connected.
We're flying to Hawaii tomorrow to visit my dad with our 3 children who are 4, 2, and 10 months. So might have to take some surrender, I think, before that. Just really surrender to the travel day. I think, we probably will. But okay, well, we'll wrap here. Where do people want to learn more about you, Microflow? Where's the best place to get connected?
Absolutely. So make sure you guys post your affiliate code in the show notes, because you guys can get $10 off your first package. For me, I'm most active on Instagram, so you can follow my personal account at It's Christy Nault, and then the Microflow account is at microflow.healing. For my websites, you can learn everything about me, my programs, my retreats, my offerings at christynault.com, and then microflowhealing.com is where you can start Microflow. I also have a 2.5-hour free microdosing masterclass where you can learn so much more, dive into the science, the energetics, safety protocols, contraindications, everything in between. And then you can find that masterclass linked in my Instagram bios on either page. And my podcast, the Cellular Upgrade Podcast, episodes every Tuesday. Really beautiful place to dive deeper with
So
this work
amazing.
too.
I definitely want to learn more about your retreats too. That sounds amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time and your energy and creating this like magic formula that I feel like has supported me personally. And I just want to say for the listener too, like it's easy to look at Wade and I and be like, oh, like you guys have a big following and you're probably making money doing this. Like we are not, we don't have like we get paid a lot of money by brands to promote sometimes and do like UGC content. This is something we fully pay for and that we love. And so we're just genuinely sharing it. So I just wanted people to know that, because sometimes people will be like, oh, like, do you actually like it? No, we actually love this.
Yeah.
And just a caveat there, I have people with huge followings reach out to me all the time and they ask to be like partners. And we don't, as much as of course I want this message to spread, we don't take on any affiliates who have not worked with our medicine and it has changed their life and they love it. And like, we're really particular too with that process, because that's important, the integrity of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much for being here. Guys, give her a follow. If this episode hit in any way and you feel like someone needs to hear this message, please send it to them.
Yes.
And we're just so grateful for Christy and for our listeners. Thank you guys so much. We hope you have a beautiful, blessed day.
Thank you.
Did we end? There we go.
I'm pressing stop, but it's still recording. Stop. I have to edit that part out.
It's okay. We'll edit this part out. Christy, thank you so much for being here. That was that was even like better than I even imagined.
Yes, that was amazing.
Good.
Yeah,
I think it's